even thought how fine it would be to be a sailor, but when she told her brother, Viserys had twisted her until she cried. "You're the blood of the dragon," he screamed at her. "A dragon, not some smelly fish." He was a fool about that, and so much else, Dany thought. If he had been more wiser and patient, it would be him sailing west to take the throne that was his by rights. Viserys had been stupid and vicious, she had come to realize, yet sometimes she missed him all the same. Not the cruel, weak man he had become by the end, but the brother who had sometimes let her creep into his bed, the boy who told her tales of the Seven Kingdoms and talked of how much better their lives would be once he claimed the crown.
I don't know why that bums me out so much. You know, I guess it's just like thinking that she did have think from Dany's perspective, like she had someone that meant the world to her. She looked up to Viserys. She thought he was the dragon, and what she thinks is her final relative. And it's just like it all went bad, and that sucks.
Yeah. At some point, we should maybe do a what if about what should Viserys have done given his circumstances.
Yeah, if Viserys was living, like, what does this look like, right?
What a mistake by even Illyrio and obviously Varys to sort of sell Dany off to the Dothraki. I mean, it's almost like it's obvious, like they're just like, get her out of here.
Well, another weird thing is like, all right, so we think about Aegon, right? Like, let's just kick it over to Aegon, like we do every chapter somehow. But the thing with Aegon, I would love to hear someone else's take on this. Is like Illyrio and Viserys are supposedly scheming to have Aegon marry Dany and be on the throne, right? Like that's what people suspect is the plan. So where does Viserys fit into all of that? And did they send them to the Dothraki because they knew Viserys would eventually mess up and be murdered? Or were they going to dispatch of Viserys at some point anyways? But like if Dany's married to Khal Drogo, like she's not available. So where's Aegon? I guess I just don't know. I don't know. Right. Maybe Illyrio never had planned. Like maybe he said, all right, sell Dany off to Khal Drogo. Viserys will get lost. Like they'll never cross the narrow sea.
I guess why would they take care of? I guess I just don't understand what would be the purpose of taking care of them for all this time if your plan is to just put young Griff on the throne. A distraction, I guess. But it's almost like it's over in Essos. It's not like he's there.
Plans. Like plan B's, I guess.
Because they would have to imagine that selling Dany off to Khal Drogo is essentially just she's done. Yeah, I would have they're smart enough to think, because first of all, the Dothraki will never cross the narrow sea, and there's no point because obviously they don't believe in Dany at that. No. I mean, at that point, there's no way they believe that she is gonna be the thing. And I feel like Dany is more valuable if your plan is to put Viserys on the throne, because you would still need to marry Viserys to someone. Mm-hmm. In all honesty, if what they probably should have done, I mean, you'd have to start. You need a war or something going on, and you could either marry Dany to somebody in Dorne, would be your best bet to try and help.
But you still got to figure out how to get away from Khal Drogo.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, marry Viserys to somebody from Dorne.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think
Okay. So maybe I said maybe I said Dany. But what I would do is I would marry Viserys. I would, right, if obviously he's still alive, which he could be. Because really, like, you wouldn't need the sort of thing that causes Ned and Robert to get upset with each other, which is Dany, to have still caused like Cersei killing Robert.
Oh yeah,
and like you could still have all that stuff without them like getting upset about Daenerys as the potential threat. So if I'm legitimately trying to use them, which at that point in the story it seems like is the case, what I would do is once the War of the Five Kings kicks off, assuming they don't marry Dany off and Viserys, assuming they're still just sitting there, because obviously we know what happens,
right?
I would try to marry Viserys to somebody in Dorne, and then I would try to marry Dany to Viserys as like a second wife, and then it's like, okay, now like that full Targaryen lineage seems a little more strong because it's brother and sister, which we know is weird, but that's what the Targaryens do. The only other house I feel like you could even try to marry them to as a Westerosi house would be like House Greyjoy, because they'll definitely rebel. Because other than that, I just don't know why they kept them around for so long, unless if their plan was to actually use them. Marrying Dany to Khal Drogo makes zero sense, because then Viserys goes with them.
Well,
so you'd have to imagine that you're just like, well, they're all dead.
Yeah. So so there's a part of me. So to get this across, we have to ignore the fact that they took care of these kids. We have to ignore that for now. But there's a chance that they just wanted these two Targaryens to kind of go away to pave the way for Aegon, right? Or Phaegon.
Yeah.
So basically, every single person tells us that the Dothraki will never cross the narrow sea. They're like, it never would happen. So Illyrio has to know this. So maybe he's just thinking, we can put these Targaryens like with these people. It'll seem like we're propping them up, but they're never going to come over here. And then Phaegon will take the crown, and then basically these two Targaryens can just like piss off over in Essos, right? My problem with that is that they took care of the kids. Now, to be fair, that could be a reactionary thing, I guess, right? Like,
yes,
like we better save these Targaryens to try to figure out what we're doing. The other thing is that I don't know, maybe Illyrio was always going to try to save Dany from Khal Drogo, and this was just I don't know. The motivations there seem very weird, but it does feel like maybe Dany is subverting the expectations that Illyrio had for her. Like, she is now taking the ship with the tiger skins and all the stuff, and she's going to go to Slaver's Bay and do these amazing things. And at that point, does Illyrio go, oh, she's got her dragons? Because I don't think he ever thought those dragon eggs were going to hatch, by the way.
Right.
I don't think that was going to happen. So is there a chance that Illyrio sees the eggs hatch, sees her kind of take command and make these amazing moves and be the queen of the people? And does he then go, oh, that's who we match with young Griff? Like, that's the one.
Yeah. The other thing is, think about how far away it is to the, like, because they already know that to eat once she gets married to Khal Drogo, he's got to cross the Dothraki Sea to go to Vaes Dothrak to get blessed before he can even begin his conquest. Yeah. It's like all the way on the other side of Essos.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they were kind of tucking them away.
Yeah.
And then if you're Illyrio, I mean, one thing I will say, if you marry Daenerys to the Dothraki, you do I'm not going to say you control the Dothraki, because you don't, but you do have an end to the Dothraki,
right?
I guess
it's like here's the region where we start, right? Yeah, my mouse is acting weird, but where it's like we're over here in Bravo, Pentos. That's where we start. We have to go all the way across the Dothraki Sea to go to Vaes Dothrak, so that he can get blessed and do the thing before he'll even like go back to cross the narrow sea. So then you have to go all the way back. That alone would take like a year,
which is ripe time for the Civil War to start. That they were trying to sow. Viserys and Illyrio definitely were banking on the Civil War, I think.
I guess.
Now here's a question: were Illyrio and Viserys, and I always lump Viserys in with Illyrio, but was Illyrio
they're definitely conspiring together?
Yeah, were they going for global domination? Maybe Targaryens that rule in Essos, and then you have Phaegon and Westeros.
I think their plan at that, maybe they did believe in them for a long time, and then finally they were just like, yeah, get rid of them. Because I just don't think that if the young Griff plan. The young Griff plan just doesn't seem like you would have to like you need this other distraction of Daenerys. And that's a tough thing to do, because obviously there's assassins coming after them. So like you're going to be dealing with assassins from time to time.
It feels like Illyrio had some sort of plan for them. Like I know I see it as throwing them away, but there had to be something. And I will say this: I think that as soon as he saw the dragons hatch and he saw Daenerys start making girl boss moves, he was like, well, yeah, like we're going to take care of Daenerys, because he sent all these boats and stuff with her. I know. So I think the plan changed.
The tricky part is the Viserys epilogue of A Dance with Dragons, in which he kills Kevin Lannister. I know there could be little birds spying and all this other stuff.
Yeah,
where he tells him the whole deal of hey, we got this guy, young Griff, who's actually Aegon Targaryen, and he's going to come over and clean house. Because you're just telling it to somebody you're about to kill. So it makes it seem like that was the plan the whole time.
Yeah. Well, I think that there is a good chance that Illyrio had some 4D chess going on. And also, we kind of touched on this earlier in the chapter, but Viserys flipped the switch at some point in his life and became a lunatic. Like a Joffrey, Joffrey times 2, Mad King times 2. So there's a chance Illyrio got to the point where he looked at Viserys and said, "This is a lost cause. This is exactly what we don't need back on the Iron Throne. Let's go with Aegon." That there's a chance that was the thing, and he said, "You know what? Let's just put him at the Dothraki."
Yeah, maybe because they babied him too much, or
and I mean, Viserys isn't subtle. He's obviously a monster. So maybe they just said, "Jigs up, we can't do it." But I got a great idea. I got another. We'll have a Blackfire sitting over here, and he's my son.
Yeah, see, that's where. Yeah, it just does. I don't know. I guess I don't know what the plan is.
We need an Illyrio sit down interview, tell all, where he just sits there and just vomits it out. Because I mean, I think post Viserys dying and Dany hatching dragons, it's pretty obvious what's happening. I think he's moving her to a way where they can meet Aegon and then get married. That seems very much like what's supposed to happen. That's also why in this chapter we find out that Dany is supposed to go to Pentos, right? Not Slaver's Bay. And Jorah Mormont convinces her to go to Slaver's Bay.
Yeah, and that's where we're headed. So
she would have sat in Pentos and waited for Aegon. That's what her role would have been if Jorah hadn't changed her mind.